What happens when a wildlife conservationist who has dedicated his entire life to protecting endangered species sits down with a talk show host known for her sharp tongue and controversial opinions? Well, you are about to witness one of the most explosive clashes in daytime television history. Robert Irwin, son of the legendary Steve Irwin, walked onto the View set expecting a friendly chat about his conservation work. What he got instead was a confrontation that would leave the audience gasping, the co-hosts scrambling, and social media absolutely erupting. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me whose side you are on in this debate. Because trust me, you are going to have strong feelings about what went down. So Robert takes his seat on the famous View couch, smiling and ready to discuss his latest project, a massive conservation initiative to protect crocodile habitats in northern Australia. The other co-hosts are nodding along, asking supportive questions about the wildlife sanctuary and his family's legacy. Everything seems perfectly pleasant. But then Joy leans forward with that look, you know the one, and says, "Robert, I have to ask you something that has been bothering me. You travel the world talking about saving animals, but isn't it all just a bit performative? I mean, your family has made millions from putting animals on television." The studio goes quiet. You can feel the tension immediately. Robert's smile fades just slightly, but he keeps his composure. "Joy, with all due respect, my family has never exploited animals for profit. Every dollar we have made has gone back into conservation efforts. We have saved thousands of acres of habitat and protected countless species from extinction." Joy waves her hand dismissively. "But you are still making money off of them, right? You are still the face of a brand that sells merchandise, that has TV deals. How is that different from a circus?" Now you can see Robert's jaw tighten. The other hosts look uncomfortable, glancing at each other like they know this is going somewhere they did not plan. Robert leans forward, his voice steady but firm. "A circus keeps animals in cages for entertainment. We rehabilitate injured wildlife. We educate millions of people about conservation, and we fight every single day against habitat destruction and poaching. If you cannot see the difference, then I question whether you have actually looked into what we do." Joy laughs, but it is not a friendly laugh. "Oh, I have looked into it. I have seen the TV shows, the photo ops with cute animals. It all looks very nice. But where is the real impact? Because from where I am sitting, it looks like you have built a career on your father's name." The audience gasps. One of the other co-hosts tries to jump in, saying something about how Robert has done incredible work in his own right. But Joy talks right over her. No, I want to hear his answer. "Robert, tell us, what have you personally accomplished that does not involve a camera crew?" Robert's face is red now, not from embarrassment, but from barely contained frustration. "You want to know what I have personally accomplished? I have worked with governments to pass legislation protecting endangered species. I have funded anti-poaching units in Africa. I have been bitten, stung, and nearly killed more times than I can count because I actually get my hands dirty doing this work. And yes, I use media as a tool because that is how you reach people. That is how you change minds and raise the funds needed to do this work on a massive scale." Joy smirks. "So you admit it is about the money. It is about using resources effectively." Robert shoots back, his voice rising slightly. "Do you know how much it costs to buy land for conservation? Do you know how much it costs to hire rangers, to build facilities, to rescue animals from illegal wildlife trade? We are talking millions of dollars. You cannot do this work by passing around a collection plate. You need major funding, and yes, that means building a brand that people trust and support." Joy leans back in her chair, clearly enjoying getting under his skin. "But here is what I do not understand. You say you care about animals, but you are constantly handling them, picking them up, moving them around for the camera. Is not that stressing them out? Is not that putting your need for content above their well-being?" Robert's eyes flash with genuine anger. "Now, every single animal interaction you see on our programs is done under strict ethical guidelines. We work with veterinarians, animal behaviorists, and wildlife experts. We never, and I mean never, put an animal in a situation that causes it harm or distress. The animals you see are either rescues being rehabilitated, educational ambassadors who are accustomed to human interaction, or wild animals being documented in their natural habitat with minimal interference. But you are still interfering." Joy presses. "You are still in their space, and if we were not in their space documenting their existence, people like you would not even know they are disappearing." Robert counters sharply. "You want to talk about interference? Let us talk about the real interference. Habitat destruction, climate change, illegal poaching. Those are the things killing animals by the thousands every single day. My family's work is about showing people what we stand to lose and giving them a reason to care enough to do something about it." Joy shakes her head. "I just think there is something troubling about making entertainment out of conservation. It feels exploitative." Robert stands up slightly in his seat, clearly done with playing nice. "You know what I find troubling, Joy? Sitting in an air-conditioned studio in New York City, criticizing people who are actually out in the field doing the hard work while you have probably never spent a single day of your life in a wildlife reserve or seen firsthand what happens when a species goes extinct. The audience erupts in mixed reactions. Some people are clapping, others are gasping, and the co-hosts are trying to regain control of the situation. Joy's face goes from smug to shocked in about half a second. She clearly did not expect Robert to come back at her that hard. One of the other co-hosts tries to step in, saying they should take a breath and reset the conversation, but Joy is not having it. She sits up straighter, her voice getting sharper. "Excuse me, but I have been an advocate for plenty of causes. You do not get to come on this show and tell me I have not done anything meaningful." Robert does not back down an inch. "I am not saying you have not advocated for causes. I am saying you are sitting here attacking someone who has dedicated their entire existence to conservation work, and you are doing it from a position of complete comfort. You have never had to pull a snake hook out of your bag at 3 in the morning to rescue a python from a flooded area. You have never had to explain to a community why protecting a crocodile habitat matters more than developing it for profit. You have never held a dying animal in your hands and known that if you do not raise enough money, dozens more will die just like it." The studio is electric now. You can hear people murmuring, some nodding in agreement, others looking scandalized. Joy tries to laugh it off. "Well, we cannot all be crocodile hunters. Robert, my father was not a hunter. He was a conservationist." Robert snaps, and you can hear the emotion creeping into his voice now. "And using that term shows exactly how little you understand about what he stood for and what I stand for. Hunters kill for sport or trophy. We dedicate our lives to keeping animals alive. There is a massive difference, and the fact that you just used that word tells me everything I need to know about how seriously you have taken this conversation." Joy's co-hosts are exchanging worried glances. One of them tries again to redirect, asking Robert about a specific project, but Joy cuts her off. "No, I want to address this. Robert, you are getting very defensive, and I think it is because deep down you know there is some truth to what I am saying. You benefit from animal content. That is just a fact." Robert laughs, but it is a bitter sound. "You want to talk about benefiting from content? You are a talk show host. You make a living off of controversial opinions and stirring up drama. Should we question whether your advocacy is genuine, or are you just using social issues to boost ratings? Because that seems like a fair question if we are applying your logic." The audience goes wild. Some people are cheering, others are booing, and Joy's face is turning red now too. "That is completely different, and you know it." "How is it different?" Robert demands. "You use a platform to push messages. I use a platform to push messages. The difference is, my message is about saving species from extinction, and your message today seems to be about tearing down someone who is trying to do good work. So please, explain to me how that is different." Joy opens her mouth, closes it, then opens it again. "I am holding you accountable. That is what journalists do." "You are not a journalist, Joy, you are a commentator," Robert says bluntly. "And there is a difference between holding someone accountable and launching baseless attacks because you think it will make for good television. If you actually cared about accountability, you would have done your research. You would know that our organization is transparent about our finances. You would know that we are regularly audited and that the vast majority of our funding goes directly to conservation programs. But you did not do that research, did you? You just decided to come at me with accusations because it makes for a more interesting segment." One of the co-hosts finally manages to get a word in. "Robert, I think what Joy is trying to say, perhaps not in the best way, is that there are always questions about how celebrity intersects with activism. It is a valid conversation to have." Robert turns to her, his tone softening slightly, because at least she is trying to be reasonable. "And it is a conversation I am happy to have when it is done in good faith. But what Joy has done here is not ask questions. She has made accusations. She has implied that my work is performative, that I am exploiting animals, that I am writing on my father's name. Those are not questions. Those are attacks, and they are attacks based on assumptions rather than facts." Joy jumps back in, clearly not ready to let this go. "Well, maybe if you were not so defensive, we could have a real conversation." "I am not being defensive. I am defending my work," Robert fires back. "There is a difference. When someone comes at you with false narratives, you have every right to correct them, and that is all I am doing. You want to have a real conversation about the ethics of wildlife media. Fine, let us have it, but let us have it based on facts, not on your gut feeling that something seems exploitative when you have not actually examined what we do." Joy leans forward again, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Okay, so educate me. Tell me why putting a crocodile on television is conservation." Robert takes a deep breath, clearly trying to keep his cool. "Putting a crocodile on television is not conservation. Putting a crocodile on television is education, which leads to public support, which leads to funding, which leads to conservation. Do you understand the chain? Most people will never see a saltwater crocodile in the wild. They will never understand the role these animals play in their ecosystems. But if I can show them on television how incredible these creatures are, how they have survived for millions of years, how they are now threatened by human activity, then suddenly people care. They donate, they vote for environmental protections, they pressure companies to stop destroying habitats. That is how it works. But you are still making money off of it, Joy repeats, like a broken record. And doctors make money off of healing people. Should we question their motives too? Robert counters instantly. Teachers make salaries while educating children. Are they exploiting kids? Firefighters get paid to save lives. Are they only in it for the paycheck? Your entire argument falls apart the moment you apply it to any other profession. Yes, I make a living doing conservation work. That does not make the work any less important or the impact any less real. Joy shakes her head. It is not the same thing. It is exactly the same thing, Robert insists. You just do not want to admit that you came into this interview with a preconceived notion and now you are doubling down. Instead of acknowledging that maybe, just maybe, you did not have all the facts. The tension in the studio is unreal at this point. The co-hosts look like they want to crawl under the table. The audience is completely divided, and Joy and Robert are locked in this intense stare-down. Joy finally breaks the silence, and her voice has an edge to it that was not there before. You know what, Robert? I think you are taking this way too personally. This is just a conversation. Robert actually laughs at that, shaking his head in disbelief. Just a conversation. You have spent the last 15 minutes questioning my integrity, my family's legacy, and the legitimacy of my life's work. And now you want to act like this is just casual chat. That is not how conversations work. Joy, you do not get to lob grenades at someone and then act surprised when they respond with force. One of the co-hosts tries to lighten the mood with a joke, but nobody is laughing. The atmosphere is too charged. Joy crosses her arms. I am allowed to ask tough questions. That is my job. Tough questions are fine, Robert says, his voice steady but intense. But there is a difference between tough questions and hostile interrogation. A tough question would be, how do you balance the needs of filming with animal welfare? That is reasonable. What you did was accuse me of exploitation without any evidence, dismiss the entire field of wildlife media as performative, and insult my father's memory. That is not journalism, Joy. That is just being mean for ratings. Oh please, Joy scoffs. Do not play the victim card. You came on this show knowing what it is. We ask hard questions here. I came on this show to talk about conservation. Robert corrects her. I came here to discuss a major initiative that could save an entire ecosystem. Instead, you turned it into an attack on my character because apparently that is more interesting to you than actual environmental issues. And that says a lot more about your priorities than it does about mine. Joy's face is flushed now, and she is clearly getting frustrated that Robert is not backing down. You are twisting my words. I never said you were a bad person. I just questioned the methods. You compared my work to a circus, Robert reminds her, his tone ice cold. You suggested I was writing on my father's name. You insinuated that everything I do is for profit and attention. Those are not questions about methods, Joy. Those are character assassinations. And I am not going to sit here and let you rewrite history just because you realize this is not going the way you planned. Another co-host jumps in, trying desperately to salvage the segment. I think we can all agree that conservation is important and that there are many ways to approach it. Robert, can you tell us more about the specific project you are working on? Robert takes a breath, clearly trying to reset. Thank you. Yes, we are working on securing over 50,000 acres of crocodile habitat in northern Australia. This area is under threat from development and climate change. By protecting it, we are not just saving crocodiles, we are protecting entire ecosystems including hundreds of bird species, fish, plants, and other wildlife. This is a multi-dollar project that will take years to complete, but the impact will be permanent. And how are you funding this? Joy asks, and you can hear the skepticism still in her voice. Robert looks at her directly. Through a combination of government grants, private donations, and yes, revenue from our media work and the Australia Zoo, which brings us right back to your original point. Without the so-called performative media work, this project would not exist. The crocodiles you seem to think I am exploiting would lose their habitat and eventually disappear. So you tell me, Joy, what is more important, your philosophical objection to wildlife media, or the actual survival of these species? Joy does not answer right away, and you can see her trying to figure out how to respond without looking bad. Finally, she says, I just think there should be oversight. There is oversight, Robert says immediately. We have veterinarians on staff. We follow all local and international wildlife regulations. We work with government agencies and independent conservation organizations. We are probably one of the most scrutinized wildlife operations in the world, precisely because we are so public. The transparency you are demanding already exists. You just have not bothered to look for it. Well, maybe you should make it more obvious. Joy shoots back. Maybe you should do your homework before accusing someone of exploitation. Robert counters without missing a beat. This is national television. You have researchers, producers, staff. If you wanted to know about our oversight and accountability, that information is publicly available. But you did not want information. You wanted controversy. And now you are upset that I am not just sitting here taking it quietly. The audience is reacting audibly now, with clear divisions. Some people are clapping for Robert, others are trying to support Joy with scattered applause. One of the co-hosts makes another attempt to bring things down. I think emotions are running high here. Let us take a step back. But Joy is not stepping back. Robert, I appreciate your passion. But I think you need to understand that not everyone is going to celebrate your work uncritically. Some of us have legitimate concerns. Concerns based on what? Robert demands. Based on actually examining my work, or based on a gut feeling, because from where I am sitting, you have not presented a single specific example of something I have done wrong. You have just made broad accusations about wildlife media in general and applied them to me. That is not legitimate criticism, that is lazy thinking. Joy's mouth drops open. Lazy thinking. Are you seriously calling me lazy? I am calling your argument lazy, Robert clarifies. There is a difference. You are clearly an intelligent person, Joy, which is why it is so frustrating that you came into this with such a surface-level take. Wildlife conservation is complex. The ethics of media in conservation is complex. But you reduced it to a soundbite about exploitation and profit, and that does a disservice to everyone who is actually trying to navigate these issues thoughtfully. I do not have to sit here and be lectured by you, Joy says, her voice rising, and I do not have to sit here and be slandered by you. Robert responds, matching her energy. But here we are. You started this, Joy. You made the choice to go after me instead of having a genuine conversation about conservation. So do not act shocked that I am defending myself. One of the co-hosts physically puts her hand up between them. Okay, we need to bring this down. We are going to take a break. No, let us finish this, Joy insists. Robert, final question. Do you think you are above criticism? Robert looks at her steadily. Not at all. I think legitimate criticism is essential for growth. But what you have offered today is not criticism. It is cynicism. There is a difference between someone who asks hard questions because they want to understand and improve things, and someone who asks hard questions because they enjoy tearing people down. You have made it very clear which category you fall into. Joy starts to respond, but Robert keeps going. And the sad thing is, you could have used this platform to actually elevate the conversation about conservation. You could have asked me about the challenges we face, about innovative solutions, about how people at home can get involved. Instead, you chose to make it about my supposed moral failings because that is easier and more entertaining. But it is not helpful, it is not productive, and frankly, it is beneath what this show should be. The studio goes silent. Even Joy seems momentarily speechless. The other co-hosts are staring at Robert like they cannot quite believe what just happened. After what feels like an eternity of silence, Joy clears her throat. You can see her trying to regain control of the situation, but there is something different in her expression now. Maybe it is respect, maybe it is just shock, but the smugness from earlier is completely gone. Well, Robert, you certainly know how to make your point. I learned from the best, Robert says, and there is a weight to those words that everyone understands. He is talking about his father, and suddenly, the energy in the room shifts slightly. My dad taught me that if you believe in something, you fight for it. You do not back down just because someone with a big platform tries to intimidate you. And you definitely do not let misinformation go unchallenged. Because silence is how good work gets buried under bad narratives. One of the co-hosts, sensing an opportunity to end this on a somewhat positive note, leans in. Robert, I think we can all see how passionate you are about this. What would you say to young people who want to get involved in conservation but do not know where to start? Robert's entire demeanor changes when he addresses this question. The anger melts away and you can see the educator come out. Start local. You do not need to go to Australia or Africa to make a difference. Find out what species in your area are threatened. Volunteer at a wildlife rescue center. Support organizations that are doing real work. And most importantly, educate yourself. Learn about ecosystems, about the interconnectedness of species, about why conservation matters. Because the more you know, the more effectively you can advocate for change. Joy, perhaps feeling like she needs to salvage something from this interview, jumps in. And I suppose you would say they should watch your shows and follow your social media. There it is again, that subtle jab, that insinuation that it is all about self. But Robert does not take the bait this time. He just looks at her calmly and says, if they want to, sure. But there are hundreds of incredible conservationists doing amazing work around the world. Follow them too. Read scientific journals. Watch documentaries from different organizations. The point is not to follow me specifically, the point is to engage with conservation in whatever way resonates with you. I am just one voice in a much larger movement. You can see Joy was not expecting that answer. She was clearly hoping he would jump at the chance to promote himself so she could pounce on it. Instead, Robert completely deflated her trap. Another co-host smiles, genuinely this time. That is a great answer. And for what it is worth, Robert, I think the work you and your family do is incredible. My kids have grown up watching your programs and they are so passionate about animals because of it. Thank you, Robert says warmly. That means everything. Because that is exactly what we are trying to do. We are trying to create a generation of people who care about the natural world, who understand that we are all connected to it and who will fight to protect it. If your kids care about animals, then we have succeeded. Joy shifts in her seat, and you can tell she is trying to figure out how to wrap this up without looking like she completely lost the exchange. Well, Robert, I think we can agree to disagree on some points. Robert tilts his head slightly. Can we though? Because I do not think we actually disagree on the fundamental issue. I think you care about animals. Joy, I think you care about ethics and accountability. We just have very different ideas about what those things look like in practice. And maybe that is okay. Maybe the conversation itself is valuable, even when it gets heated. It is a gracious out, and you can see Joy considering whether to take it. Finally, she nods. Fair enough. I appreciate you coming on and not just giving us the standard talking points. You certainly kept it interesting. That is one way to put it, Robert says with a slight smile, and there is a ripple of laughter through the audience. The tension breaks just a little bit. One of the co-hosts takes the opportunity to wrap things up. Robert Irwin, everyone, you can follow his conservation work and catch his programs on all the usual platforms. Thank you for being here. Robert stands, shakes hands with the co-hosts, and even offers his hand to Joy. She takes it, and they have a brief exchange that the microphones do not quite pick up. Whatever he says to her, she nods, and for just a second, there seems to be an understanding between them. As Robert walks off the set, the cameras catch the audience reaction. People are standing, applauding, and you can hear voices calling out support. The co-hosts turn back to the camera, trying to transition to the next segment. But you can tell, they are all still processing what just happened. Joy in particular looks thoughtful, like maybe, just maybe, the exchange made her reconsider some things. What you just witnessed was not your typical talk show interview. This was a masterclass in standing your ground, defending your work, and not letting a hostile line of questioning derail an important message. Robert Irwin came on The View to talk about conservation. And while Joy Behar tried to turn it into a debate about his motives and methods, he never lost sight of what actually matters, protecting wildlife and educating people about why that work is critical. The question is, who handled this better? Did Joy have valid points about the commercialization of conservation, or was she out of line from the start? Did Robert have every right to push back as hard as he did, or did he overreact to legitimate criticism? These are the questions people are going to be debating for weeks, and honestly, that is probably a good thing. Because whether you agree with how this conversation went down or not, it got people talking about conservation, about media ethics, about how we fund important work in the modern age. What is undeniable is that Robert Irwin proved he is not just coasting on his family name. He showed up, he defended his work with facts and passion, and he did not let anyone diminish the importance of what he does. Love him or hate him after watching this, you cannot say he is not committed. So here is what I want to know from you. Do you think Joy was right to question Robert's methods, or do you think she crossed the line? Make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, letting me know. Do you think Robert Irwin was justified in how he responded? Or should he have handled Joy's questions differently? Let me know your thoughts, because this is a conversation worth continuing.